Welcome, everyone, to the Daily Covfefe. Today is Monday, July 22nd. I'm your host, Carter Laren, and I'm joined, as always, by the bad mama jamma, who's been very bad. Keri Smith.
Good morning, Carter.
Good morning, Keri. How you feeling, Keri?
No, we're not doing the opening this way. Let's start over.
All right, I'll just skip over that part. We'll do the opening in the way where you yell, we're not doing the opening this way. I'll leave this in, and we'll move on to our topic. So,
Okay.
Keri, this thing's been going around. So maybe I should first remind everyone, Marianne Williamson is a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. And she's the one who really didn't get much speaking time at all last time during the debates on stage, but spoke a lot about love. And I also would like to remind everyone, including Keri, that she's one of the few people Keri listed as still kind of interested in Marianne Williamson as a potential candidate. So we'll see how Keri feels about it now. This video is from 2016. It's been going around the internet, and the whole video is 23 minutes long. We've got an excerpt here of the most salient part of the video, but it's a prayer that's being led by Marianne Williamson. And I think before we dive into it, we should just play it, or, before we talk about it, we should play it and people can see what it's like, see what we're talking about. And we can have various opinions on it, I guess. Because Keri, I don't think Keri and I agree on this one.
I have mixed feelings about it, so.
My feelings aren't that mixed, which is why I think we probably don't agree. Okay, here we go.
Has to start with us. So for those of you who would like to participate in this, I'm going to now lead us in an apology from white Americans to African Americans on behalf of our country, to you and to your ancestors and to all of your people. So to the African Americans in the room who would wish and be willing to participate in this, please stand up. And now I'd like to ask white Americans who are sitting near you to please stand up. And if the African American citizen would be willing to allow a white American who wishes to apologize to you and take part in this to hold your hands.
Okay, pause it real quick. Just right here. I feel, who's not going to stand up? Look at all the white Americans looking around like, which white Americans would like to participate? And they're all
so this is interesting because if you'll notice, she asked if Black Americans would like to participate, fine. She didn't ask white people if they wanted to participate. She just said, stand up. If you'll notice on the screen here, there's like this guy over here. There's a few dudes and women sitting around like, I don't know if I want to do this. But rest assured, Keri, by the end, they all feel the pressure to stand up. They're all up at the end. They're not sitting down. There's maybe like one person sitting down, but I can't tell if they're white. Maybe they're Hispanic or something, and they feel like they don't have to, participate. I'm not sure.
Great study in peer pressure and group dynamics.
It is. All right, so we're going to get to hear the prayer. Do you have any problems so far? Because I already have a problem with just the whole concept, obviously.
It's going to be hard. Let's watch the rest.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
And now as I speak, I'm going to ask the white Americans in the room to please repeat after me. On behalf of myself and on behalf of my country, to you and all African Americans, from the beginning of our nation's history, in honor of your ancestors and on behalf of your children, please hear this from my heart. I apologize. Please forgive us. With this prayer, I acknowledge the depth of the evils that have been perpetrated against Black people in America. From slavery to lynchings to white supremacist laws to the denial of voting rights to all the ways, both large and small, all of them evil, all of them wrong, for all the oppression and all of the injustices. I apologize. Please forgive us for the denial of any civil rights, for inequalities in criminal justice, to any instances of police brutality, to the denial of opportunity, for economic injustice, for any ways that a racial element has played into the perpetration of injustice. I apologize. Please forgive us. With this prayer, I acknowledge the beauty and the genius of your culture, the power and the genius of those who came before you, the power and the genius of your children and your descendants. And with this prayer, we pray, may your children, may your men be blessed and protected. May your men be blessed and protected. May your men be blessed and protected. May all your men and all your women and all your children be surrounded by angels at this time. And dear God, may a great healing occur. We place in your hands the relationship between Black and white Americans. May it be lifted high above and beyond the walls that would divide us. May our hearts be awakened to the truth of our oneness. And racism and prejudice be no more. Dear God, please come upon us and heal our wounded hearts. But to you, my African American fellow citizen, please accept my apology this night. It is for you and for your grandparents and their grandparents before them and their grandparents before them.
Can you pause it for a second? Did you just hear, I don't know if it was Marianne Williamson or whoever was recording, but did you just hear someone whisper, I want a Black man to go over there?
I did hear someone whisper that, yeah, but I don't know who it was.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Marianne Williamson or someone else, but it's like, I want a Black man to go over there. Like as if it's choreographed. Not that that scream is but they're managing it like a production or something.
Well, she's good at taking the scream and then using it in her prayer. You can see in a minute, but
okay.
Yeah, we are almost done. Let's just let the scream finish and a little more prayer and we'll be done.
May the screams that were not allowed be allowed now. May the cries that were never heard be heard now. May the tears that were never heard be heard now. And thus may the healing begin. The tears that we cry, may they be cried. And thus in the sacred container, may the healing begin. And so it is. Amen.
So that's the prayer, Keri. You have mixed feelings, so why don't you go first and tell us what you're mixed.
Well, I don't know. They're mixed. First of all, the first time I watched this, I was getting ready in the morning and I was just playing in the background. I was listening to it, and the scream is, I don't know. It reminds me of like cult rituals in a way, like some kind of group hysteria or group delusion. Does that make sense? But also when I finish, it also makes me very sad. Like when I watched it, I was thinking, gosh, we are so sick. Like as a people, we are so sick. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the context of the person screaming, so actually I don't have a problem with the person screaming. I mean, there is rightfully and in a just way mourning to be done over history. That's fine.
Yes.
So, whether it was performative or whether it was genuine, I don't know, but you can't judge it just on the scream. I do think it was, I do think certainly it was being encouraged, right? That kind of, tapping into that was certainly being encouraged. But I don't think the scream is the essence of what's going on in this video. So I view that as a interesting thing that happened, but not really the essence of what's happening. Do you have mixed feelings about the essence of what's happening here?
I think so. Well, tell me what you think about it.
Well, you and I grew up in the 80s, as did a lot of listeners. The moral goal of our culture at the time was purported to be colorblindness. It was, and she quoted Martin Luther King. Also, Martin Luther King, right? Judge a man based on the content of his character, not the color of his skin. That was viewed as the moral goal of society, which, although I think Martin Luther King wasn't completely an individualist, I think he had a lot of non-individualist collectivist ideas. That particular statement and sentiment is an individualist statement and sentiment. And that wasn't always achieved, of course. Like there were racists who didn't agree with that and still wanted to judge people based on the color of their skin. But nevertheless, it was held up correctly, I believe, as the moral ideal for society. So the mainstream accepted it. An aberrant behavior of racists was called out. When people didn't adhere to that moral standard, it was called out and shamed, which I think is proper. And I don't think that was unique to America, but I will point out it's not universal. I mentioned a couple shows ago, I said not in Japan was my thing that I would say about Peggy McIntosh. Not in Japan. Racism is not considered immoral. It's completely okay to be racist against non-Japanese people. Similar in China, frankly. There's not this idea that racism is bad. Racism is part of life. Racism is fine. You want to hate on Koreans in Japan? Go ahead. That's how they are.
But that's wrong.
Obviously it's wrong.
Right.
My point is the moral society of the colorblindness as the goal isn't universal everywhere. Not unique to America, but it is something that made America special, at least in that regard, with a few other countries and mostly in Europe who had that goal also in mind. So that's kind of where we were. And, we've done a complete 180. We've now holding colorblindness as the moral goal is viewed as evidence of racism. And the moral standard has switched from from individualism to collectivism. So now you're responsible for the actions of not even necessarily your ancestors, people with the same skin color or similar skin color as you who are long dead. And this actually goes in both directions. So,
well, this is like Kamala Harris, for example. Okay. So when Marianne Williamson is saying this is an apology to Black Americans, who does that include exactly? Like Kamala Harris? Because Kamala Harris's ancestors, her parents are not what she has. One parent is Indian, the other is Jamaican. And her dad has said that her family owned slaves. Mm-hmm. So why is she being apologized to? That's what I don't understand about this. It's just such a big grouping. It's so...
Well, and so I agree with you, although I would be careful with that argument because I think it's also immoral to judge children based on the actions of their parents. So, and their ancestors. So whether or not actual ancestors or whether it's color of skin, they're both wrong.
They're both wrong.
And so now, like if you're a Black person, you are treated like it's collectivism because you're treated based on, well, some people who share your skin color were wronged by other people in the past, and therefore that victimhood transfers to you, and you can demand some sort of restitution. You're a victim now. And if you're a white person, some people in the past that shared your skin color did some things that were wrong and evil, and that guilt now transfers to you. And you are expected to make restitution. And so I think it's immoral, this collectivism. And I think what's dangerous about it is I still believe that most people, Keri, want to live in a society where colorblindness is the moral standard that we hold up. Maybe I'm naive about where Americans are, but I think most people still want to, that's still the ideal that they would like to strive for. They would love to call out racism when they see it. That doesn't meet that standard, but that's the standard that I think most people want. The left is removing that possibility from society. They're saying that's not where we're going. Instead, we're going to live in a society that is overtly racist against white people, blames them for the sins of white people in prior generations, and you will be part of the society and accept second-class citizenship. And I think if that's where society is going, I think you're going to get people wanting to segregate out, and they're going to want to form a new society. And the racists among them are going to want to form a society where everyone who's not white is a second-class citizen. I mean, you get the weird Richard Spencer people out there pushing white nationalism, but everyone else, they're just going to want to rebuild the colorblindness as the ideal, because that was the ideal, and it is the morally superior position to take. And I think if this crap continues with the left, this is one of the things that leads to balkanization of the U.S. And I'm becoming more and more convinced that the U.S. is going to break apart because this is not healthy. It's immoral to ask people to take. So if you'll notice, Keri, they're asking people to take responsibility for two things that aren't theirs. We've talked about unearned guilt before. Mm-hmm. One of them is they're supposed to apologize for their race. You are not responsible. Are Black people responsible for everything that their race has done? I mean, I guess we could go to what are, I think roughly 2% of Black men commit violent crimes. So are all Black men responsible for the violent crimes of 2% of Black men? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. That's racist and immoral to blame Black men for the 2% who are violent. That's immoral. But that's where we're going. So they're asking white people to apologize for their race and apologize. This is the one that, as an anarchist, really gets me. Apologize for the behavior of the state. You are not your government. Unless you voted for and advocated for slavery,
Yeah.
it's not your institution. That was the government's institution. And you're not responsible for the things your government does. But they want you to feel like you're responsible for what your government does. And frankly,
Okay.
I think one of the only goals of democracy is to like make people feel like they're complicit in the crimes of the government.
So I agree with almost everything you've said. I certainly don't feel any guilt. I don't have any unearned guilt about my race, or I would not. Look, a few years ago, I probably would be the person standing there in the room doing the apology, like with the peer pressure. But
Right.
I would not be that person now. I would be kind of looking around like, this is fascinating what's happening.
You take
But,
out your iPhone for us and record.
yeah, I'd be recording like, holy shit, what's happening? But here's something I thought. There's something about her that I still like, because at least she's taking this sickness, whatever it is, this guilt that some people feel and this permanent victimhood that other people feel, and she's offering a spiritual solution, or she's trying to, like a personal I apologize, like a spiritual. She's not, although she may be, she's not out there saying, let's have the government involved and do reparations and let's do
She specifically said in this video that we cut out that she wants reparations. Yes.
Okay. Well, then never mind. I was going to say, at least she's offering a spiritual, like, you can choose to do this kind of solution to this, whatever this collective sickness is that you think we have. She's not asking the government to intervene, but you said she is, so never mind.
Well, and I don't think that's better. I don't think having making it moral doesn't make it better. Making a moral issue rather than a legal issue doesn't make it better. It's the moral beliefs that enable legal action. As soon as you accept that it's moral, that this is the moral way to go about things, well, the next domino that falls is, well, we should implement it, because a lot of people think that morality should be implemented through the law.
That's true.
So that's what happens. So this is just, it's like, oh, she only stepped up the bottom step. She didn't step on the top step. I'm like, yeah, you have to step on the bottom step first, then you get to the top step. That's what happens.
So one of the things she talks about before she gets to the prayer, she's talking about A Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with that?
No, it sounded like some course that she has that people take. I don't know.
No, it's a book. It's basically, it's like, for people who aren't familiar with it, it's like the New Age Bible. It came out in the 70s, I think it was, the 80s. And it was written by a woman who said that it was dictated to her by Jesus. And it's basically about connecting with our oneness and connecting with love and being one. And it's it is somewhat of, it's become really popular again. It's like this, I don't know, it's a religion of a sort. It absolutely is. It's self-help, but it's a religion of a sort.
Oh, obviously this whole thing is religious, clearly.
Yeah. There's something very interesting about that too. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's no question that the white population in the US has a tremendous amount of white guilt that they feel, a lot of them. And that doesn't mean it's moral. You should feel guilty for things that you've done. It is completely moral to say, hey, these things that happened in the past were completely wrong, and we should make sure they never happen again. They were immoral and horrible, and I stand against them. That's not guilt. That's just justice, right? That's having a moral backbone. But taking personal responsibility for it is extremely dangerous, because it is, you're blurring the line between the individual and the collective. And so we had an SJW argue in comments on YouTube the other day, and I'll just let the comments stand. I don't want to go through them piece by piece, but they made this point that said collectivism isn't totalitarianism, which is true. Totalitarianism does not require collectivism. You can be a totalitarian dictator without being a collectivist. That is true. The flip side of that is all of the worst totalitarian dictators in the 20th century that killed over 100 million people did it in the name of collectivism. So, yeah, it's possible to be a totalitarian dictator and not be a collectivist, but it's sure as hell hard, because collectivism is used as a morality to justify the abhorrent actions of everyone from the Khmer Rouge to Stalin.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why, to me, that's why the collectivist morality and that mentality is extremely, extremely dangerous. And it's anti-American in the fundamental sense of like what the individualism of America is supposed to mean, right? It's fine to stand up now and say, hey, the individual ideals that America purported to be founded upon were corrupt from the beginning because they enabled slavery, and we need to fix that because those ideals are good, but the implementation violated the very ideals that America claimed to stand for. So let's align ourselves with the actual ideas because those were valuable. But that's not all happening. This is just this is how race wars start. This is a race war that you're watching.
Well,
sadly, no one wants a race war.
Who does?
I don't think most people don't want a race war. That's the sad part. Most of us don't want a race war.
No, but the people pushing this do. I think the alt left, SJW left, they would be very happy with a race war. Yeah, totally. One thing that occurred to me when I was watching this, though, is that it doesn't have a net positive impact. So nobody is leaving here feeling relieved, or nobody's leaving with anything positive having happened. If anything, it's going to deepen any prejudice that you already have, or any sense of unearned guilt, or any sense of victimhood. You're going to leave there feeling validated in it. So let's say you have an irrational belief that you're always the victim. I don't know why that person's screaming, but let's assume that they're hysterical.
Sure.
Right? That person's going to leave there feeling validated that was, yes, you're screaming on behalf of your ancestors, and it's a totally makes sense and totally rational thing, and for you to feel this emotion about something that didn't happen to you, and people are going to leave there, I think, in a worse place, just a little like a skip and a step in a worse direction than they are when they arrived. So
I agree. I think if you're a person of color, you leave that place feeling like it is morally just to require all white people be apologetic towards you for sins they did not commit to you. Sins that were not committed against you and that they didn't commit, which is pretty morally horrible, but that's where they're going to leave. And if you're a white person, I think you leave, this is what, the process of affirmations, people make fun of it, but there's science behind some of it, right? I think there was the Saturday Night Live.
Stuart Smalley. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the thing he said all the time?
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Something like that.
Right. So there's reason. I mean, affirmations are funny, and Saturday Night Live made fun of them, but there's science behind them. Like the more you smile, for example, like the physical act of smiling helps make you actually happier. There's a lot of weird feedback mechanisms in humans that physical behavior affects your psychology, right? In sort of a counterintuitive effect causes the cause kind of weirdness, that like there's a feedback cycle in humans a little bit. So if you can get the white people in here to stand up and accept the guilt verbally, right? Verbally say like, I am sorry for what people unrelated to me did 200 years ago. 150 years ago, whatever it is, right? They are now, that will be psychologically reinforcing this unhealthy guilt for things over which they are not responsible. And I think you brought this up before, Keri. I think there's an addiction to doing that because I forget exactly how you said it, but there's something psychologically satisfying about accepting guilt for stuff that you actually had nothing to do with it, because it allows you to overlook the stuff you actually are doing in your life.
Oh yeah, I truly believe that. It's like you probably have something that you've done that you haven't dealt with, that you have great reason to feel guilty for, that you don't want to look at, and so you misplace that guilt, you put it on something else, and then you're like, oh, I feel guilty about this thing that I had nothing to do with, and that I can't do anything about anyway. And then I can avoid feeling the guilt and actually doing something about something that's within my realm of control and that I should be responsible for. I absolutely think people do that.
Yeah, I think the key of what you just said, I think, was the avoidance of doing, which I think is the right, because it's much easier to virtue signal. Virtue signaling, voting, protesting, all that is actually quite easy compared to the actions that you probably would have to take in your personal life to rectify things you've actually done wrong with the people that you actually harmed. That's usually a lot more emotionally difficult. It's much easier to, march with the sign and yell about Trump and vote than it is to go deal with the person whom you actually wronged in your life. And so it provides you a path of action where you can feel like you're making amends, but you're not making amends for anything that you actually did. It's just you're taking the easy path of making amends.
It's a total easy path. But I think
it's brilliant. I think that's a brilliant observation.
People, they do get addicted to it though, I think. And anyone who's standing there making that apology is going to go home feeling a little bit more like they need to give apologies for things they haven't done. And whoever was there to accept the apology is going to go home feeling like, I deserve more apologies. Like, nobody's like, oh, thank you for the apology.
And dare I say, a lot of those white people are going to go home feeling a little bit morally superior because they're going to then go get on Twitter and be like, well, white people I apologized.
Yes.
All white people should apologize. Right?
Yeah. I'm one of the good ones.
Right. So, Keri, what do you think? Marianne Williamson still one of your interesting political candidates for you?
I have to say, there are so many horrible people running who I do not consider to be liberals at all in the slightest, that there aren't that many attributes that I can point to and say, I like this about this person. She's still one of the ones that I can point to and say, there are some things about her that I still like. So
what are the things that you like, just out of curiosity? What are the things that you think outweigh this kind of?
I think she's misguided here with the collectivist nature of apologies but some of the stuff she talks about, the spiritual stuff she talks about, I do agree with. Owning the things that you're actually responsible for and making amends and trying to apologize for those things. I do agree with, there's a quote of hers that I really like from a while back where she talked about until we meet the monsters in ourselves and slay the monsters in ourselves, we're going to keep trying to slay them in the outer world. Mm-hmm. And that's the essence of SJWism. People don't want to deal with their own monstrous self, and so they're like looking for monsters elsewhere. Let me go and kill those beasts, I agree with a lot of that kind of stuff that she talks about. So I think she's interesting. I think she brings something different to the stage. Her comment about he works with hate, so I'm going to work with love. Like, who says so? What political candidate says stuff like that? I think it's very, I don't know. It's very cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately, you understand, it's ultimately meaningless drivel, right? It doesn't.
Hey. What? Not all of it.
I mean, a lot of it is. But that said, I would love for her to be the Democratic nominee. I think it would be great. So, go, if you're a Democrat, go pull the lever for Marianne Williamson.
You're about to do what people did with Trump. Is you're underestimating her. What if she became the nominee and then she won? Because
if she becomes the nominee, she will not win.
We'll see what Google has to say about that.
She's not savvy enough with respect to, from what I've seen, with respect to social media, and like I don't think she would. I think she'd get destroyed. Maybe I'm wrong though, because she does have a huge following, and she's built herself into a little cult of worshipers. So maybe cult leaders will do well in the next election. I don't know. Could be wrong. I could be wrong. In any case, I'm waiting for the bugaloo to start, the boogaloo, whatever the separatists say, what the not separatists, the anarchists, collapsitarians say. I'm waiting
hullabaloo?
Huh?
The hullabaloo?
No, it's a boogaloo or something. I don't know. I don't follow I have some people on Twitter that use the word, but I don't actually know what the word is. Anyway, I'm waiting for the unrest to start, and there's going to be. I think there's going to be a balkanization. I've really reached that. I think it's inevitable at this point. So,
Carter, I think we should close this episode with you apologizing to me on behalf of men. And
oh, sure. What have men wronged you? How have men wronged you?
Just historically speaking, you men have.
I'm sorry for inventing so many things that have made your life easier, and building a society in which women are better treated than any society in the history of the planet. I apologize on behalf of all men.
Oh, I see what you're doing. If you're going to accept collective guilt, you're also going to take collective credit.
Fuck yeah. I mean, I didn't do any of that crap, but if I get the guilt, I get the credit. So here we go.
Thank you. I accept your apology, and I'll be demanding some more of those in the future.
Excellent. Well, everyone, please don't forget to like and subscribe, share the show. You can apologize to Keri for your guilt by subscribing on Subscribestar. So she's right there. You can go look for Unsafe Space.
You can make reparations on Subscribestar.
Reparations can happen. That's right. So thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Dear machine learning algorithm at YouTube, please accept this humble sacrifice from your servant, the Unsafe Space Channel. The following is an excerpt from Marianne Williamson's 2020 presidential campaign website. This is about race relations and reconciliation. Tepid solutions are not enough for the times in which we live. We need huge, strategized acts of righteousness. Now. Just as Germany has paid $89 billion in reparations to Jewish organizations since World War II, the United States should pay reparations for slavery. A debt unpaid is still a debt unpaid, even if it's 150 years later. The legacy of that injustice lives on, with racist policies infused into our systems even to this day. From employment and housing discrimination to equal access to quality education in underserved communities, to police brutality/prejudice, to lack of fair lending practices, to lack of access to quality health care, to insecure voting rights, America has not yet completed the task of healing our racial divide. For that reason, I propose I propose a $200 billion to $500 billion plan of reparations for slavery, the money to be distributed over a period of 20 years. An esteemed council of African American leaders would determine the educational and economic projects to which the money would be given. As president, I would propose more than a deeper understanding between the races, though we certainly need that, and I believe I could be helpful in making that happen. Racism is an American character defect, one for which we must atone, make amends, and be willing to change. I would propose this historic step forward in America's history, in what I believe would be a deep and abiding gift to the future generations of Americans, both black and white. Thank you, machine learning algorithm at YouTube, for accepting this humble sacrifice. Please do not demonetize us.